Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Performer to Producer podcast. My name is Buga, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the hardest decisions I had to make since taking over our family theater company and really learning how to be a producing performer. I'm going to give you a piece of the story I haven't shared before about our theater and about our family history, just so you can understand some of the decisions and why they were hard. As I've already shared, if you haven't heard before, I inherited a family theater company. My parents founded it around 35 years ago. They're both actors, but they also, my mom is a producer. She has a PhD in culture politics, and my dad is a director besides being an actor. And so they ran the theater, dad as an artistic director and mom as the main CEO, for around 26 years. And then the situation in Croatia got a bit rough, and they moved to China. At the same time, I moved to Switzerland to study. And basically, our theater was out of our family's hands for about 3 years, let's say. We got a deputy CEO, a person who actually worked with my mom before, so she took over as deputy CEO. And my parents were kind of involved, but basically most of the business decision and just day-to-day business and everything was led by this one person. When I came back from my studies in Switzerland, I went back to Croatia, and I was in this limbo that I already mentioned, where I didn't get into the Young Artist program. I didn't get any auditions or agents. I was in a very weird place vocally. My teacher died in Croatia, and I was told a lot of different things, and I was just very, very lost. And I didn't know what to do, and I wanted to earn money, so it's very weird and funny. I grew up in theater. We have a theater, and I applied for jobs like in McDonald's or like at a retail shop. And I actually got the position, and I told my parents, like, I am going to go work at McDonald's. And they were like, they stopped in their tracks, and they were like, Buga, you do know we have a theater. That basically, it would be great if it had a new direction, an artistic direction, especially because the deputy CEO, she was more in business and less in arts. And you can earn your living from performing. You have that option. For me, in my head, it was not an option at all. I had a lot of imposter syndrome because I finished opera singing. So how in the world can I go and perform in theater, like drama performances for children or whatever, when I'm not an actress by diploma? So that took first a lot of work. And although I'm in acting my whole life, I was a child actress and all of that, it just didn't even cross my mind. But then I went back to the theater, and I kind of offered my help if there was something to be done. I created my own performance, and I also took over a solo show for children. So I started performing. But I was a very typical performer in the sense that I was like, I'm not going to go into the business part of this. I don't care about the business part of it. I don't know anything about this. So I told to our deputy CEO, I was like, you deal with the business stuff. You make the decisions. I'm here for the artistic part. I'm going to, create performances. I'm going to clean the space if it needs cleaning, or whatever. But I'm just not going to go into any business stuff. But since I am my mother's daughter, I couldn't not see stuff. I did spend a lot of my childhood in rehearsal room with my dad while he was directing show and my mom producing, but I also did spend a lot of time with my mom in the office. And unconsciously and subconsciously, I kind of got, I learned a lot about running the company, about our values, about the policies and procedures and systems my mom put in place and how she wanted the company to be run and how she ran it. I knew a lot about that, although I didn't consciously learn about it. And I saw when I came back that the theater was not being run in this way. There was, of course, nobody to control this, and certain policies and procedures totally changed. And obviously they were not doing good to the theater. Some policies weren't even being, met or followed. And I started because I couldn't help myself, I started digging in and seeing that the theater was not working well and that we are going down. And this was one of the first hard decisions that I had to make, but it was not that hard because I started seeing the benefits of creating my own shows. I started seeing the joy of being my own boss and performing performances I believe in and seeing their immediate effect. And also, I was so much aware of the stuff that I didn't like in the system, in the performing arts industry. And I saw I'm that type, and, because of the circumstances that I grew up in, I was so aware of the things that could have been done better. And at this point, I was like, if I want things to change, if I want and see how things can be done differently, I have to be the one to take responsibility. Somebody has to. And I can be that catalyst of change. Having my own company, having my own theater, that's a field to play, to create performances I believe in, to fulfill myself as a performer, but also a chance to change the industry from inside, to set an example of how things can be done and how I believe they should be done. And this was very motivating. It was very scary to go from, okay, I'm going to be, air quotes, just a performer, to I'm going to go and become a leader, become a manager, become a CEO, start taking responsibility for more than just my career and my life, start taking responsibility for putting food on the table in other families, and also start taking responsibility of what is possible in the industry and how I'm going to be a part of it and part of that change that I so badly wanted to see. And this is something I think performers are not empowered enough to do. It all goes together, but we are not even shown that there is a chance that we can influence the industry in a way. We are kind of taught from the beginning that we just have to listen, we have to obey, we are not the decision makers, we are not the ones who are catalyst of change, that we don't have that much influence. That's what we're shown and what we're taught. But just creating your own performances or doing stuff your way, being true to yourself already is such a huge step forward, and we actually can do so much more from the inside to change the industry if we are taught how to. But the first step is taking that responsibility and be like, okay, first understanding that you can do something, that we all can do something about changing stuff in the industry that we see and don't like. And the second of all is having the courage to do that step. And then the third is having the knowledge of how to do that step. And for me, that was that first big decision of, okay, am I going to run away? And I'm just going to go back to focusing myself on solely as a performer and running away from this responsibility and just, go back to just auditioning and trying to kind of find my place in the mainstream? Or am I going to, this is my home. Also, there is, of course, a lot of emotional connection to this place and to this company. And I had a mission, I had a vision, and I had ideas for shows as well, and stories to tell. And I was like, okay, well, maybe it's time to, take that responsibility and go with it and see where that takes me. And that was the first big one. And then, so for in the next year, let's say, from that decision, when I started digging in and I started seeing things that didn't work. And then I faced one of the biggest problems of human race, which is dealing with change. Because when you, nobody likes to change. Some people are more adept to change, some are not. Especially we people don't like the change if we are presented the change by someone else that implies that we did stuff wrong or that we made a wrong decision. That's where a lot of people have a block and they're not willing to reconsider it and to, admit that maybe the way they were doing things could have been done better. And this is what, I believe that everybody's good and everybody wants to, be a catalyst of change and everything. So for a year, the CEO deputy and me, we tried to make it as a team. I tried to enforce some changes, but I still wasn't ready to really take on a role of CEO and to take, management in my hands. I was kind of trying to feed her information and kind of work as a team, which in that certain phase and in that certain position doesn't really work. So it was a struggle. And after a year, I realized that it's just not working. And if I'm going to go on this path, which I decided I want to, I have to fire our deputy CEO. And that was definitely one of the hardest decisions. It took me 6 months to get ready for that. And the biggest lessons I learned from that, and that I want to also kind of share, is this differentiation between business and personal. This is something also that we're not taught, which I think I see a lot of performers struggle with, because I haven't met a lot of performers that are ready to have difficult conversations or take on critique professionally without taking it personally. We pretend we didn't take it personally, but we actually did. And we actually do a lot. And having conversations about, not only during rehearsals, but about contracts. These are difficult conversations that we go in on a personal level instead of going in as, thinking about it as business. And this is a huge, huge difference. I think that we are not taught this business mindset and to understand, this is, firing someone is not a personal thing. I watched it as a personal thing. I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to get angry at me, or we're going to get into a fight. I don't want to go into a fight, or, she's not gonna. It was all very emotional. It was all very personal. And it took me a long time to, go through and find a way to find this professional cold tone, to go, not cold, but just to go there and not go into the fights, just present the facts, say the things as they are, and try to do it smoothly and just professionally. And this is, this influences this attitude of connecting, because our business is very personal. Our art is very personal. We give so much from ourselves, but when it comes to the business part of it, working on that business mindset and understanding this is work, this is business. I know a lot of my colleagues who also get offended when I call our audiences clients. And they're like, you can't say that. The phenomenon of audience is too complicated. I'm like, yeah, of course. But when we're talking contracts, when we're talking payments, these people pay for our services. That's why we also don't pay ourselves. I'm going to come to that. But really embracing that business mindset and saying, okay, yes, this is art, but this is also business. We're getting paid for it. People pay us to do this. And developing that business mindset, it was really, really hard for me. And as I said, it took me 6 months to get ready for it. I still am not happy with how I handled the whole situation, but I had to do it. It had to be done. And that was then let's say the second hard decision I had to make. That was in October of 2021. And just to make things clear, making all of these decisions doesn't mean I was good at it, or it doesn't mean I completely embraced them on the spot, or that I embody now all of the things that I wanted to embody, the change that I want to present or whatever. Especially when you have to turn the whole company around, that's why I'm constantly repeating, and I'm going to keep repeating that I really recommend setting up systems, procedures, goal management, learning about all of these basics, about your values, about policies, about contract, about all of the basics. Now, if you're just starting, it's so much easier than doing it when things are already running. And I know, because as I said, I went through it and I'm still going through it. And now it's been a year since that firing, as I'm recording this in December of 2022. And it's been so scary, and it took me a while to really embrace the role of CEO. I'm still learning how to do it. I'm so glad that I'm mentored by my mom, and taking more and more responsibility every day and learning that differentiation between business and personal every day. But that decision definitely was very hard, and I think it would have been easier if I worked on that business mindset and of really understanding that it's not personal. I even, when I had talks with this person, I several times I told this is not personal, but I would get emotional. I would get personal. Some things that she would say about me as a CEO or as a team worker, I would take personally as a person. This is the trick with, performances. We take critique very badly because we think it talks about our worthiness as a person instead of what we did in our job. So that was number 2. Number 3 was cutting our funding. So this is also a decision I pondered on a long, long time. And let me just explain for a short time how funding works in Croatia. And also, if you're thinking about applying to European Union funding projects, if you're in Europe, this might be interesting to you. So, at the time that I took over the company, we were in a lot of debt. That also had to do with this European funded projects and stuff. And the problem is that in Croatia, our Ministry of Culture, and it's similar with this European Union funded projects, that you apply for a certain sum. Let's say, I don't know, I'm just going to take a sum. It's not realistic, but let's say you get 100,000 euros. And they promise you 100,000 euros for the project. In the Ministry of Culture in Croatia, they fund only pre-production of shows. So they will pay, they can give you money or sponsor like costume design or directing, writing the play, scenography and stuff. Of course, when performances start, you have to pay your actors and everything from your tickets because we're independent theater. But it works like this. So let's say they give you 100,000 euros to produce a show, but they won't give you all the money in advance. So they will give you, the Ministry of Culture gives you like 70,000, let's say, so 70%. And European Union, it depends. Sometimes it's even like 30 or 40%. The rest of the money you need to come up with from yourself first. You have to pay everything. Then you prove to the ministry or European Union that the money was spent for this project, and then they give you the rest. Which means if you're in debt like we were, or if you're just starting out and you don't have other shows to sell that will generate money, or you're just starting out, you don't have sponsors or whatever, you have to come up with the rest of the sum in advance before they give the money to you. And this I realized once I finally faced our numbers, which also took me a while. That's going to be another episode. But when I finally put pen to paper and started tracking our shows and revenue and what is profitable and blah, 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 I realized that this is a huge hole in our system where, I'm taking money from another project, or I'm going into debt on one side to cover the costs of this that will eventually come. But then I have to pay the debt that I created for this one. So it goes in circles, and it's never actually profitable. And so I decided to cut our funding. The other reason why I decided to do that, because I was like, I have to remove the safety net. This was we always thought, we have funding for projects or whatever, so we're safe. We're going to find a way, to kind of cover our costs. And we always kind of relied on this. And this is a lot of, also psychologists and people that work with brain talk about this, that when your brain needs to find a solution, it will find it. I did this exercise several times. If I told you now that you have to come up with 10,000 euros or dollars, you would tell me you don't have them. But if I told you that it's a matter of life or death, or that it's something that's really important to you, and if you just sit down with a list, with a pen and paper, and start writing a list, I'm sure you would find a way to find those 10,000 euros. It's a very good exercise. I recommend it. And as I worked on this with my mindset coach as well, I was like, okay, I have to remove the safety net. I have to move us forward. I have to also build the self-confidence in us as the company that we can really survive from our work instead of being dependent on someone else. I really wanted to make us independent. And this was so, so scary. I was very honest with my colleague, who was the only employee at the time, who worked in sales. I was like, this is what's happening. now we're on our own and we have to find the ways to, start making money and to support ourselves. And so, we can pay the rent and we can pay the bills and I can pay you your paycheck and all of that, and support our artists. And that's also when I started really looking at the numbers. It became really important to make sure that every show paid for itself and that it brought in money. Because I realized that a lot of times I would perform for nothing just because I wanted to perform. So that was a really scary decision, a very hard one that I had to do, and I knew it was the right thing to do for us, although it was scary, although, it seemed that having funding would be easier, but it actually wasn't. And that was really hard, but a really good decision, and I'm really glad we made it. We're probably going to go back to that kind of funding as well, when we'll have that surplus that it won't cost us, and then it's great. But if you have to dig in and create more debt, then it just didn't make sense for us. And I'm sure that, in this way and these things and these kind of decisions, it in your gut when it's right. And it's scary. It was so scary. It doesn't mean it wasn't scary. It was very, very scary. But I knew I had to do it and I had to pull up the rug. Removing that safety net, whatever it is for you, it doesn't mean that if you're worried that you're going to be on the street and hungry if you do this, then don't do that. But maybe it's a small step for you, something that you've been holding on to as security, as a security blanket, that's actually doing you no good, that's actually stopping you from moving forward and taking more action because it's safer. So just something to think about. I definitely, started thinking up different ways to fund ourselves. I also wanted to move our sales forward. It was a really good decision, although it was a scary one. But every day I'm more and more sure in this one. Another one regarding money that was really scary for me was starting to pay myself. This was, so at the beginning when I started performing, we were, as I said, in a lot of debt. There's, the whole situation, it always takes time, you can't turn things around. Especially when you're deep in, you can't turn things around so quickly. Again, why it's so important to start good and healthy in advance with knowledge and tools and not just diving into it and figuring it out as you go along. Because the further you go along without the knowledge and the tools and the systems, the harder it will be to get then things running the way they should be running. So I started performing and I felt really guilty about paying myself because I felt like I was taking away from my company. And I was like, I need to save the company and I'm just going to give everything I have to, to the company. Everything I earn goes to the company. I'm not going to pay myself the fees that I earn from performing because, I'm going to go save the company. And it was okay for a while, but then I really started to get frustrated because I saw, I could see on paper how much I would earn from performing, which would be so fulfilling, but I didn't because I was giving it to the company and the guilt of, I can't take away from the company now. But then it became also frustrating. I had this icky feeling of paying others because you feel on a personal level, although of course I'm happy to pay my artists and my colleagues and all of that, but it felt like I'm paying them, but I'm not paying myself. And it felt disrespectful to myself, but it was a very hard decision to pay myself. I had moments where, I would put myself on the payroll, let's say, or paycheck list, and then I would cut what I was supposed to earn in half because I was like, I can't take that much money from the theater. I can't, which was also a result of not going deep into my finances, which I just started doing recently, and really knowing how much every show earned and how much it brought, and if we earned surplus or not, and how much we need to earn every month, and blah blah blah. Because I had no idea what my numbers looked like. I thought they were much worse than actually they were. So I was so afraid of the money, and I was so afraid of losing it, and I was afraid that I'm going to be the one driving the company into more debt if I pay myself, which is just not a healthy way to work, and it doesn't make any sense. But that was also the struggle that I'm still working on, and it's very, very hard. I got a financial advisor. That's going to be my next topic, my next point. And she was like, how much would you like to earn monthly from your work? And I was like, what? You can't say that. You can't ask me that. I can't ask that from my company. And she was like, why don't you trust your work? Why don't you trust your company? Why don't you trust your performances? I was like, oh my God, that's true. So that was also, I think, another big lesson in learning about money as performer, and stopping to be afraid of the money, and actually starting to believe that I can earn money with performing, and that my performances are equally worthy as, performing in somebody else's production. So all of this thing, talking about money, we are not shown all these different possibilities of earning as a performer. And I really believed for a real long time I shouldn't be earning from my performing. I mean, the fact that I first thought of going to work in a retail shop or McDonald's or whatever, instead of working at my own theater, tells you enough about my money mindset and regarding performing. And that's something I think the industry perpetuates. And it doesn't have to be like that. And once I started paying myself, it became so empowering. And so it's such a great feeling to have that moment of I'm paying myself, and this money came from me performing, and I'm not taking away from the company. The company, the show covered itself. I can pay myself, and we are still safe. And, I am in control of that, of my income, and I can project perfectly enough, because I can just look at my schedule, how much I'm going to earn each week or month. And that feeling of empowerment and freedom, and giving myself that confirmation that my art is worth it, that I'm worthy as a performer, that what I do has value. Because if we don't pay ourselves, and if we don't ask to be paid, if we agree to work for free, we are the first ones devaluing our art, and we are the first ones devaluing what we do. So we can't expect the society to value our work and give us money and give us recognition and pay for art if we're the first ones who take away from it, who don't pay ourselves. There are different phases, of course, and you can't pay yourself, I don't know, you earned 500 whatever, and then you pay yourself 1,000. Don't know, but even if you pay yourself €1, it means something. And that's how you start building your self-confidence. That's how you start building your self-worth from within. And you start respecting the art from within, because you're respecting yourself as an artist. And that moment and that understanding of, I created this performance, the performance was sold, the people enjoyed it, and I get to make money from it. Directly, you see directly your impact. And then back to your finances as well. It's so empowering and so big, and I want that feeling for everyone. So that's one of the hardest decisions, because I felt so guilty and so bad about paying myself. And I took away from myself for a very long time. And, I felt proud about it. I was talking to everyone how I didn't pay myself a certain sum because I was giving it to my theater, not understanding how devaluating that is and how diminishing that is and how much I took away by not paying myself. And then the fourth one, or the fifth one for today, that I want to share about hardest decision is getting support. Before I was 100% sure that we can sustain that. Let me explain. So as I said, I fired our deputy CEO and another colleague. And what we were left with, I have an accountant, and I have a colleague who works in sales, but she took over so much more slack and so many more jobs. But they were just like the two of us in the office. Accountant doesn't work on site. And we had, of course, our outer colleagues, a technician and actors, but basically that was it. The core was the 2 or 3 of us. And at one point, first of all, I felt burning out. I understood and I saw that I was so much in the business that I couldn't grow it. I couldn't look from outside. I couldn't work on the business because I had no time. I was a technician. I was the driver. I did, I performed. There were even, because I wanted to give day off to my colleagues, I would first sell the tickets, then I would take the codes, then I would go on stage and perform, then I would clean the theater and go home. So, and I realized that I was on the verge of burnout, combining that with getting cast as Belle in Beauty and the Beast. So I did have a creative outlet, which is great, and I'm very grateful for that. But I also had guilt because I was, in rehearsal room and not in the theater, helping out. And then my colleague also was on the verge of burnout, selling shows and driving and doing all of these other things as well. She only didn't perform, but everything else she took over as well. And we were really, really spread thin. And the business started going well, and we started selling shows more and more, and things started rolling. But I understood at one point, I looked at her and I looked at myself in the mirror and understood that we face the ceiling. We can't go beyond this. And I wanted us to go beyond this because I know we can, and our shows deserve it and our audiences deserve it. But there was no going forward from this point. And I saw that she's going to break. I was on the verge of breakdown, and I was like, okay, we need to get help in so many different areas. But it was scary getting help because I was very worried, what if this was a fluke, and what if we can't sustain this? What if I hire someone and then next month I won't be able to pay them? But on the other hand, I understood through work also with my coaches that we won't be able to grow if we don't get help. And we will start going down because I won't have time, energy, emotion to work on the creative part. So there will be nothing to sell. I won't be able to make good decisions because I am tired all the time. I can't think. So, I can't do a lot of things because I'm so tired. I don't even know where to start. So I can't make business decisions. I can't think, much in advance. I can't have the bigger picture because I'm so in the now and, saving the company day by day. My colleague won't be able to sell anymore because she's going to burn out and go crazy, and the energy was just lost. So it was not helpful. And the fear of getting help was there. And of course, I thought we don't have the money. But then I realized that's how we're going to create the money. That person is going to help us sell more shows or create more programs or whatever that is going to create the money. And we'll be able to grow. For me, also get an assistant. It was very scary. I was like, first of all, I thought, oh my God, how can I even get how obnoxious is that to say, I need an assistant? And then the second thing was like, how am I going to pay for that? Again, taking from the company. But I understood that if I don't, there won't be the company. There won't be me. There won't be CEO. There will be no one left to lead the company and to be the company, because at the end, it's always us. We are the company. Again, not completely just part of us. It's not our identity. But that was such a big, even if, it's not just about the money and making more money, but it's about making more space. It's about saving your time. It's about creating the time for you to create, to lead, to perform. I started to perform less because I had to do all of these other things. Again, very lucky for me that I got Beauty and the Beast, so I had, that creative outlet. But if it weren't for that, I would perform much less. So all of it was very influencing, everything that I love. And if you don't have the time and space to go out of your business and enjoy your life, you'll start hating it. I promise you, I know. So you need the space to go out. Also to look at the business from outside and see what's working, what's not. To control what's happening, because you lose control. That's what happened to me. Now we have chaos because one part of the company I didn't overlook at all. I overlooked at all. I didn't control at all because I just couldn't handle all the things. And now I have to salvage that part of the company. So it's just not useful. And getting help and getting new employees, getting an assistant, even if you get someone to look at your CV, or someone that will answer your emails or help you manage your calendar, or help you manage your auditions, so audition schedule, whatever it is, even if it's the smallest help, if it seems, I don't have the money right now, that's what's going to create money, because you'll have the time, you'll have the space, you'll have the calmness, you'll have the ability to generate money and to create stuff and to be creative and just have that freedom and really enjoy this performing life instead of just surviving in it and hustling all the time. It's just not good for the arts and for you. So that was that's the decision I made in the last month. It was very, very difficult because it's change, bringing new people in, being afraid of that we'll not be able to sustain it, that I'll have to fire them in a month because it won't work. learning about new people, being aware and being open to the fact that maybe we won't fit together, so I'll have to find someone else, and putting them on probation and all of this stuff. It was very, very scary and very hard, but I understood that it's either that's the only way we can grow, asking for support. And then I asked for, I invested in coaching, I invested in financial advisor, in a lot of things, in a business coach. And it pays off, even if it doesn't pay off in money. I'm not saying go into debt for this. No, not at all. But even if it doesn't generate that like 10 times the money, it generates time and peace. And after a while, I finally started to gain hope that we will grow. And I started to get ideas. I started to create content again, like this podcast, because I was able to take a step back, and I was able, to rest and to get my creative juices flowing. And that's what you need, even if if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out my previous episode that's called PAEI. Even if you're not the person, the one that looks wide and in the future, if you're more like a productive person, delegating and getting support will enable you to go into the process the way you like it. But you need to be able to step back, whatever type of person you are, to step back and look and be the leader instead of being an employee of your business, because you're the leader, you're the creator. And we need the space. Our brain needs space and energy to come up with new ideas, to lead calmly and securely, to learn. All of this stuff, you need the space and time, and that's why you need support. At one point, you just can't do it alone anymore. So this was a long one. These are like the first 4 that came, or 5, I have no idea, that came to mind. I hope this was helpful. I hope that inspired you to take some action, or just to think about some things in your career, in your life, maybe empowered you to take some action. If you're feeling lost, if you're not sure how to even start, what your first steps should be, how to get that first basic knowledge to set up yourself for success, I really recommend check the show notes. That's where I put the link to all of our different possibilities to check our content. Like you can sign up for our free newsletter, or you can get Vita's book. Vita is my mom. A Time for Change. That is great for introduction to first steps of just getting to know yourself first and learning the basics of goal management, time management, and stuff like that. That then will help you go into the other stuff, that management and leadership and creating a change in the industry requires. And if you already have a company, or if you want to dive deeper than that, you can book a free coaching call with my mom, or you can check out our course, From Performer to Producer, that we created together. That's really made to help change the industry from within and empower more artists to take their careers into their own hands and start, creating their careers instead of waiting for permission from the outside to do something, or to be called a performer, or to earn your living from performing. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this, please do leave a review or leave a comment. I'll also write our Instagram handles in the description, so you can send us a DM or a comment. Share this through Instagram or email or whatever. I don't know, LinkedIn. I have no idea. Anyways, I would more than love to see what your thoughts on all of this. Thanks again for listening, and I hope to hear from you and have a great day. Bye.